Welcome to World War II Online Tutorials, the basics on how to fly in World War II Online. To get started, if you have a Steam account, just open it up and go to Practice Offline and select your unit. Otherwise, go to your Cornered Rat software, select Practice Offline. Once the unit's open, select the type of plane that you wish to fly. We're going to start with the basic Hurricane, but be aware, all models of airplanes are available to you in offline mode. Once you spawn in, you can use the Y key to open and close your HUD. You can close it to get it out of your way. You can use 0 on your number pad to get a zoom in on your instruments. Some common instruments are airspeed indicator, altimeter, engine temperature, your fuel gauge, manifold pressure indicator, a variometer, which is your climb and sink rate indicator, an artificial horizon, compass, a bank and slip indicator, and a landing gear status indicator. Please note that not all planes have the exact same layout or the same instrument. For example, the WWII has the altimeter, airspeed indicator, the fuel gauge, the engine temperature, the manifold pressure, compass, a bank and slip indicator, and the landing gear status. It does not have a variometer. In-game, you will spawn into a hangar. In offline mode, you do not. You spawn in the open. So to simulate this, I've flown a plane over to one of the hangars. In-game, you have first-person view only. As in all vehicles in this game, press E to start your engine. If you're going to taxi, you use very little throttle. If you want to turn, you can unlock the tail wheel by the / and then the X and Z keys to use brakes to swivel the plane. Don't forget to relock the tail wheel. If you're not sure which direction you need to take off from, you can always click on the map and see where the runway goes, left and right or diagonal. Also, there are different structures on the airfield. Hangars, airfield bunkers, the conning tower. Here in the offline mode, you can use your insert, delete, home, and end keys to look around. Also, be aware that there are some AI bunkers in different places. You have to watch out for them, as well as the fuel tanks off to the right you see. When you're ready, hit your max throttle, use your apostrophe key a couple times to get to max RPM, and your Z axis on your joystick to control your rudders to keep your plane going straight, or tap your brakes very lightly to keep the plane straight. Once you attain about 80 miles per hour, pull back on your joystick gently so that you have a gentle rise on the plane. While it increases its speed, then you'll gain more lift and you can go a little faster. Pressing G to raise your landing gear. Once you've attained a sufficient altitude and airspeed, begin practicing maneuvering your plane. Turn it into some banking turns, do some rolling, practice looping, all the different things that you need to do, get the feel for the type of plane and how it's going to handle. Each and every plane is different in this game, so you do need to practice with each and every one of them if you intend to fly them. Now, we haven't talked about flap control in the game. You can use flaps. In most planes you don't have to. Certain planes like heavy bombers and things you do, but for the most part it's not necessary. You can, when you do, be aware that the flaps tend to cause the plane to nose down, and you have to be prepared for that. Now, when landing, you want to approach the front of the airfield at about 120 miles per hour or thereabouts. As you approach, you allow the plane to come down. Let it sink on its own. Don't try to dive at the airfield. Just decrease your speed a little bit, decrease the power, and just as you approach the front, you can flare a little bit and the plane will settle. Once it does, tap the brakes lightly, decrease the throttle to 0, and only tap the brakes left, right, back and forth to keep the plane straight. Otherwise, you can cause it to ground loop, which can flip the plane over. Taking off in an Axis 109E1 is virtually identical to that of an Allied plane. One of the differences of the Axis plane is that most of them have a leading slat on the forward edge of their wings, which is a spring-loaded slat being held in by air compression. Once you've reached about 60 kilometers per hour, the force of the air over the wing will force the slats in. If you're in a stall situation where the air is disrupted over the leading edge, the slats will pop out and help reestablish a little bit of control. However, one of the drawbacks is that in high-speed situations and you pull too great of an angle of attack, then the slats can pop out and disrupt the airflow. Once you reach about 128 kilometers per hour or more, I usually shoot for the 150 mark on the instrument because that's easier to see. Then you can let your plane slowly rise into the sky. As you gain speed, you can use your G to raise the landing gear, and then you can fly the plane as you normally would. Once you're ready to land, and you've reached a speed less than 300 kilometers per hour, you can deploy your landing gear. Once you approach the front of the airfield, you want to try to keep the speed between 200 and 150. Less than 150, the plane tends to flop a little. So if you can keep it around 200, that's great. Depending on the speed that you're flying, you may have to apply a little bit of thrust, a little bit of power to keep the plane in that 150 to 200 kilometer per hour range. As you approach the front of the airfield, decrease the power or maintain the power if you're in that zone, and let the plane settle on its own. Don't dive at the airfield. Once the plane begins to settle, you can pull back on the stick, let it flare, and then very gently tap the brakes, your X and Z's. The wheelbase is very narrow, and the plane will tip over on its wing very easily, so you have to tap very, very gently. Because of the simple nature of airplanes, if they hit a tree or even the wingtip glances off of something that's a solid object, the plane will explode, unlike any other vehicles in the game. So it's best to practice offline so that not to waste any supplies for the campaign, and you have access to any and all vehicles, so you have a greater chance of having more fun and learning how to fly the vehicles. With a little practice, you'll catch on quickly and have lots of fun. Thank you for watching World War II Online tutorial.